Hello and welcome to the third episode of the podcast SADDO, the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive. My name is Alison, I am your co-host.
And I'm Eggs Benedict, I'm your other co-host.
And welcome to looking at the second episode of The Good Life, the episode entitled Say Little Hen.
Yeah, it's our third episode, but it's the second episode of the series, confusingly.
So the aim of the podcast is that you can listen along with us while we talk through each of the episodes, one after the other, of The Good Life, and you can join in at any point on social media, get in touch, and just tell us what you think.
Yeah, I think one of the great things about The Good Life is that it's not like a lot of sitcoms from the 70s and 80s. You don't need to have seen what happened last week. So jump in, watch an episode, and then listen to the corresponding episode with us while we pull it apart and have fun with it, I think.
And we'd love to hear from you. If you want to get in touch with anything, point anything out to us, just get involved. It'd be great to hear from you.
Yep, our email is saddopodcast@gmail.com, and we're all over the social media. I'm sure you'll find us if you search us using SADDO Podcast.
In the last episode, I did raise the question of Tom's use of centimetres in the drawing office. Obviously, this is a show that was screened between 1975 and 1978. And I did wonder whether it was a regular thing to use centimetres in an office at that time. And I have found out that, yes, building regulations, the steel industry and the paint industry would have been affected with the change to metrication from 1972 onwards, in case you were wondering.
And next week on Metric Standards podcast, we'll be looking at feet and inches.
Just wanted to clear that up.
No, good on you.
So as we've taken a deep dive into episode 2, there is a few issues that sort of arise from a rewatch, highlighting that this is a TV show of a different time. So hashtag different times. There's lots of things made reference to that perhaps you wouldn't look at in the same way in 2020. So we're just sort of making you aware of that we're aware of that as we're doing this.
It's like our blanket disclaimer, isn't it? That we know that things that were said in the 70s and 80s aren't necessarily acceptable in today's woke environment. However, we're not going to necessarily dwell on all of them because that would make for quite a boring podcast. I'm sure everyone agrees. So we'll just cover it off with hashtag different times when things are a little bit wrong. So
let's get to it. This is the second episode, Say Little Hen.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
So at the start of this episode, we see Tom on the beginning bit of his self-sufficiency journey, turning up back at his house with a goat in the back of Jerry's car. And the goat is obviously to be put in the garden and to get milk from and to be part of their self-sufficient life. Which really made me laugh when they got the goat out of the car and put him into the garden. Obviously, from that point onwards, the life is changing quite rapidly for the Goods, and this is where we begin to see the relationship between the Goods and the neighbours, the Ledbetters, who don't really approve of the fact that the Goods' garden is all being dug up. There's greenhouses being smashed next door, and we see Margo for the first time. Last week she was just a voice from a bedroom, and we see Margo over the garden wall for the first time in all her glory.
It's brilliant to see Margo. She was so missing in that first episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Just on the Goods and the Ledbetters, which is now, it probably gets stuck into the fact that we got these two very different neighbours. Did you? I mean, presumably you picked up that the writers Esmond and Larby, they wrote the reason Jerry's called Jerry is because they had a Tom, so they decided they might as well have a Jerry.
Tom and Jerry, yes.
But one thing I hadn't realised until I started researching this show in general was that the reason the Ledbetters are called the Ledbetters is because it's like the Goods and the Betters.
Oh my goodness! There we go.
Yeah,
I like that.
Bit of trivia for you.
Goods and Betters, yeah. Oh, fabulous. So, I must admit, with Margo appearing over the wall, I didn't warm to her on a rewatch of this. I quite struggled with the Margo character in this episode. The aim for the Ledbetters at this stage is to try and coax Tom back to work full time with Jerry, and away from this noisy, stinky lifestyle that they've sort of taken on. And that's the whole sort of premise of Say Little Hen, that they get the boss round, Sir, as they call him, to come round and try and coax him back to work, and to just give up on this daft notion that he's that they're going to be self-sufficient at home and not have to work.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of by stealth, isn't it? Because Jerry's got his plan that he's put in place, which comes from a good place. He wants to help Tom see the light as far as he's concerned. Tom's idea is stupid, and Margot's attitude is that, you know, he's inflicted it on poor Barbara, and it's all a facade, I think she calls it, you know, and they've got a very superior attitude to the Goods' life decisions. But it comes from a good place. They want to help because they just don't understand the decisions they've made. I think it's quite funny when Jerry comes home, he's straight on the gin again. Did you notice that?
I did, and then doubled up when Margo said that it was too early, so he just tipped hers into his own glass, which did make me laugh.
Straight on the gin, Jerry.
And then I think later on in the episode, he's lay on the deck chair outside, like having a bit of a snooze, and I thought that's no snooze, that's no natural sleep, that's gin passing out, that, ain't it?
Yeah, gin coma.
It's a gin coma.
But on the subject of, you said outside on his deck chair, it's not really outside, is it? It's one of those inside for outside studios, I think, and it's quite jarring because this is what you find with 70s sitcoms, and we'll find this as the podcast goes on. You have this weird juxtaposition between 16mm film for the outside bits, like Barbara in a greenhouse, and then it cuts to Margo and Jerry's patio, and it's quite clearly lit by studio lights and with a fake backdrop, and it's totally different. And it, you know, when you're used to today's very, a sitcom, you can't see the blends these days. I thought it was quite jarring.
It is. It's really obvious, isn't it? It really is. In this episode, obviously, we are introduced to the Goods kitchen, which you mentioned was the missing character in the first episode. The Goods kitchen, that cosy, the centre of their house. So it was nice to see it in this episode, I thought. Yeah,
and of course, as we go in there, Tom's busy making his goat's butter, isn't he?
Yes, churning away at the goat's butter that just ends up like slop, and then he puts chicken poo fingers in it.
Oh, dirty bastard!
Yeah, so it's just ruined anyway with his chicken poo fingers.
Yeah, that made him make a lot of noises, didn't it?
It did.
Bloody noise making prick. But he's
It did.
Have you ever had goat's milk? I mean, goat's butter.
I have had, yes, I've had goat's milk. It tastes. It's got a taste all of its own. It's a strange one. It's quite meaty, if dairy can taste meaty, I think. So I can't imagine that goat's milk butter is much better, to be honest. No,
people tend to not like dairy that's coming from the sheep and goats. I don't mind goat's cheese. I think it's lovely. But apparently goat milk has a significantly lower lactose content than milk from most other animals, which makes it easier digestible for humans. So it's got better. It's something to do with like the absorption of micronutrients, and there's more iron and calcium going into the body. So as far as sustainability and living well, it actually stands up what they're doing there, I think.
Oh, well, that's a big thumbs up for goat's milk butter then, isn't it?
Yeah, and for Tom. Good on you, Tom.
And for Tom, with his noise making. But yes, I like that. And I think they decided anyway that they were going to give it back to the goat, so it wasn't going to get wasted. I think, obviously, knowing what the series sort of brings up in subsequent episodes, seeing Margo for the first time, it was a bit of a shock at how much I didn't enjoy her as a character in this episode. the way that she's quite, I know she's sort of judgmental, but quite mean-spirited in this episode, I thought. She just seems to, the lack of understanding and so unsympathetic. And I think she even calls Barbara pathetic to
her face.
Felicity. Yeah. Behind her back and to her face, she calls her pathetic. Which, yeah, it didn't really sit well with me, that. I felt quite sad about that. And I think even to quote her, she says, degradation, misery and squalor, and we have to live next door to it, when she refers to their decision to follow this kind of lifestyle, and says that it's social suicide. And I thought, blimey, as time goes on, perhaps Margo is someone that learns and listens and becomes a bit more open-minded about it. But in this episode in particular, I think it really does highlight the differences between the two couples.
Yeah, and her snobbery, and she's very very scathing. But again, she's still redeemable because, I mean, initially she's, albeit with a touch of superiority, she's happy to be helping them by giving them leftover dinner, which of course they give to the chickens.
Yes. Yeah. But straight away she makes the assumption that they can't afford food, and, oh yes, of course you can have our little bits of leftovers that I'm putting in the bin. But even then she brings that up in front of the company and is quite scathing about it. So yeah, it did make me a little bit cross. But the outdoor drinks before the meal, the supposed meal that's going to take place, Sir's wife, Felicity, does come across as quite an open-minded and someone willing to sort of listen and understand and hear what people are saying, because she does ask lots of questions about this new lifestyle and she wants to know more about it. She's really interested, yeah. And doesn't seem to be as condemning as the others, which I thought that was quite nice, and it was quite a nice sort of juxtaposition against what I saw as being a bit of a bullying atmosphere. It was nice to hear someone on board.
Good writing, I thought, because it's good to have someone who's a little bit more laissez-faire and just happy for them. And I don't know, she seemed interested and thought it was an adventure, but at the same time she seemed smacked off her tits to me. I think she was on the Prozac or whatever the 1970s equivalent was, Valium or something.
Yeah, and then a gin when she arrives, obviously, as she's through the door.
If Jerry left any.
A gin off Jerry, yeah. She does say as well, which I thought was quite poignant, I wanted to do something when I was young, and then I married Andrew, and that was the end of that. And it made me feel quite sorry for her, because maybe she sort of sees Barbara as the life that she perhaps, an avenue she might have followed in the past if she'd not married Sir. Yeah,
but now she's sort of lumped in with him. I think she just accepted her lot, hasn't she? And of course we have this deference given to Sir again, like we had in the first episode, where they turn up. Again, Tom, to his credit, he just turns up and he goes, "Oh, it's old Andy," which is exactly how he should be, in my opinion. I know in the 70s you'd treat your boss with probably a bit more formally, but I don't really like the way they, particularly the way Jerry is very sycophantic and Toadie's
Jerry's
up
an
to
ass licker, isn't he? He really is. He's
And I don't really understand this whole thing about calling people by their titles, because, I mean, even now you've got chefs like Gordon Ramsay who want to be called Chef Ramsay. And I just don't get it. I mean,
no.
We know you're a chef. Why do we have to address you such? We don't get on, we don't talk to bus driver Ken. Or, we don't give everyone the title of their job. That would just be annoying. I think it just shows an ego in terms of, there's a weird thing with chefs. I think they're very egocentric, especially the TV variety.
That is true, yeah.
It's not for me.
No.
Were you telling me, though, that chef had some meaning?
Yes. The word chef in Spanish is jefe, which is also the name of boss. It's the word for boss as well. So chef and boss have the same word. Jefe.
So it must be just some authority thing that maybe that's why he insists on being called Chef Ramsay while he's furloughing his workers, so he doesn't have to pay him.
He's just the jefe.
We've just lost Gordon. He's not listening to the podcast anymore. Fuck off, you craggy-faced bastard. I'm not bothered.
He had him filled in though, didn't he? He's crags.
Did he? Has he had some
Yeah, I
plastering
think so.
done?
If you looked at some pictures from maybe sort of 10 years ago, he's far more craggier than he is now.
Is he as smooth as a baby's bottom now, is he?
Not quite, no. A very sort of wrinkly baby's bottom, but
well, you can't polish
smoother than he was. No, but you can roll it in glitter, which that's what appears to have happened.
Oh well. Anyway, that was a little segue into Gordon Ramsay. One thing that we haven't mentioned that I just wanted to quickly pull back to is when Tom and Barbara popped out to try and encourage their chickens to mate.
Yes.
I found it interesting, although very subtly introduced, that the chicken was called Lenin.
Yes.
I think that's a nod, isn't it, to the sort of... it's not a political show, even though you've clearly got Margo and Jerry who are very conservative.
Yes.
Tom and Barbara don't really show any political bias, but there's a sort of nod to a more socialist way of living. Way
of life, yeah. I did spot that and thought it was it's quite an unusual name for a chicken, I think. Yeah.
I don't think they call the rest of them Trotsky and... Although that would actually suit the goat because the goat trots.
Trotsky! That's what you call a goat, isn't it?
Yeah. I think I'm going to have to write to John Larby now. Mind you, he's probably well dead, isn't he?
Did they not call the goat Margo? Is that not what...
Well, that's what they say, but in future episodes she's known as Geraldine, isn't she?
Of course she is, so she's not Margo. I think it was just a rib, wasn't it, to sort of annoy Margo.
Either that or they
after her.
Either that or it's just a lack of consistency. It wouldn't surprise me if they just decided to ditch that idea. Yeah.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
So where were we? So at the dinner party, I think Jerry's just trying to get Tom his job back, isn't he? Describes him as a thundering good draftsman.
Yes. Tom, straight away, is just not he's not taking him on at all, is he? He's not interested. And the more that they sort of try and encourage him and sell it to him to come back to work, Tom is completely turned off to the idea. He really has he's sold into this new lifestyle.
Yeah, and there's a lot of exposition there as to how it's going to work. They talk about, harvest time, using the savings till harvest time, selling some stuff, using dung to make gas, to Margot's horror.
Yes.
And, they're working hard, but they don't see it as work. And it just sets that seed again for what they're doing and their commitment to it. I think it's a nice bit of exposition that doesn't seem forced.
Yeah.
Did you notice the meal that Margo handed over the fence? She referred to as a rustic pot roast.
Rustic pot roast, and it was shepherd's pie.
Shepherd's pie. And then the meal that she was preparing for them that night was asparagus and canard à la paysanne.
Was the asparagus from like Iceland or something like that? It was from like the frozen shop because it wasn't in season as well, which I thought was quite poignant.
I think Felicity made a comment that it looked just like it did on the tin.
On the tin.
I like Felicity. I think she's game.
I did. I thought she was a great character, and I think she took the story on a little bit. She sort of like rolled the story on to that next level of, right, this is what we're doing. We're doing this, and woe betide anyone that's sort of going to stand in our way. We are doing it. And I thought she was quite a cute little cheerleader for them, I think.
And she was a good foil as well with Sir, because you've got Sir who's all bluster, isn't he? Even when Tom and Barbara arrive, he's like, good.
Yeah.
And she's, a completely different character. And they're almost an odd couple themselves, aren't they? Because Tom and Barbara aren't an odd couple. Jerry and Margo aren't an odd couple, but the two of them are odd couples. They're coupled couples, which is a sitcom trope.
Couples, yes.
You see coupled couples in certain sitcoms through the years, and that's where the juxtaposition is in this one. Rather than having a man and a woman, or, these days it could be any gender, but back then, a man and a woman who were slightly different, they're not. But the couples are friends, and they've got totally different life views and values.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not values, because I think the values are quite... That's probably one of the things that keeps them on the same, that binds them together, because I think they both have strong values of fairness and helping each other out and just doing the right thing. But they definitely have different worldviews.
Yes, they do. And I think that reference before to sort of like the politics, even though politics don't come into it, you can sort of read into what the situation is between and the differences between those couples. I think it again just highlights that the series was, even though it's such a long time ago now, it was quite ahead of its time, really.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, when we mention it almost every episode, but when the young ones took the piss out of it, and yeah. I love the young ones, but I in a way I think that the young ones has aged worse than the Good Life.
Do you think? Ah, right, okay.
In a way, I mean, it's I suppose in another way maybe not, but maybe we'll do the young ones one day once we finish with this.
Oh, please, yeah,
that'd be good.
I would love that.
Well, none of this would have happened if you'd been doing a nice programme like The Good Life.
Tom's pride comes into play, doesn't it? Because when they announce that they're going to have their own dinner and it's going to be really special, they go home and talk about killing a chicken. And
yes.
They don't want to, but then Tom's pride won't let him not kill a chicken, so because he wants to get one over on Margo and show that he's doing something special. And that's a recurring thing. Yeah. He's a very proud man. And he does a little demonstration of how he's going to kill the chickens, which is quite comical.
Yeah, with the onions.
Quite graphic. But of course, when he goes up...
It was quite graphic.
Oh, very, yeah. I thought, bloody hell, Tom. Barbara didn't seem fazed, but she didn't want to do it herself. And of course, he goes out, and there's a great close-up scene of him, of a chicken staring down the barrel of a air pistol.
I didn't really like that. That bothered me a little bit.
I liked it. I thought it was funny because...
Oh, my God.
I don't know. Well, he didn't do it ultimately, did he? Because we do see later the Goods having their meal and it's just a fried egg.
Just a fried egg chopped in half. I know. Bless him.
But did you notice that the Goods had their own candelabras? Because Margo was worried about her candelabras needing replating before Sir came round. And I thought, oh, how upper class, how 70s and sort of of its time. And I thought, well, Tom and Barbara won't be worried about that type of thing. But they had their own candelabras.
They had them. They must be like leftover things from their previous life. Yeah. You think they'd sell them, though, for money? I'd have sold them.
Yeah. Well, maybe they weren't as plated and precious as Tom and Jerry's, eh?
Yeah.
Tom and Jerry. Margo and Jerry.
Cheapo. Yeah, maybe they were cheapo candelabras. But yeah, it did tickle me actually, that scene where they sat outside and sort of playing up to the Ledbetters with the sitting outside and having the dinner party again, but it was just like a little fried egg on a plate, which I thought was quite sweet. Yeah,
it's a nice little button on the episode as well, and then it goes to the credits, doesn't it? Did you enjoy this one?
I didn't enjoy it as much as I anticipated I would. When I first saw Margo over the wall, I thought, "Yay, here she is!" But no, I just despised her the whole episode. I think she is someone that you warm to as a character, but I think I'd forgotten how stark the differences are right at the beginning between her and the Goods.
I think as well they find their way in their writing. These early episodes is scene setting. I think they had an audience of 5 million odd for these first series episodes.
Right.
By the time you're in series 2 and 3, it's like 19 million.
Yeah.
Because you only had three TV channels in those days, you know.
That's it. Yeah, 5 million would have been quite a low number around 1975, wouldn't it?
It found its feet in the second series, definitely. But I also think the writers found their... You know, they're great writers and the TV show that, and they find their way to write the characters more sympathetically and bring great character development to those parts.
That's true. What did you think?
I enjoyed it. Like I say, it's not the finest episode, but there was more humour in it than the first one.
Yeah.
And I didn't hate Margo in this one. In fact, I didn't even hate Tom in this one. Having said how much I disliked Tom in the very first of our episodes, he's been all right in these two. It's later, I think, he becomes a pain in the arse.
Yeah, I noticed that in this episode, he didn't have a shirt and tie on underneath his pale blue jumper. So he's obviously getting stuck in with the workloads.
He's in his...
Not blurring the lines.
This is a good time to introduce us to Al's Fashion Corner, I think, isn't it? Let's play the jingle.
Oh, Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner.
Fashion corner.
So in Fashion Corner this week, we have a whole host of different fashions to look at, all of the time, all of the 70s, but a huge array, let's say, of fashion on offer. My favourite outfit in this episode, I must admit, was Margo's Sun Lounger, which is a brown and yellow and orange, massive flowered, typical 70s print. But it stood out to me as like, wow, yeah, that to me just typifies the 70s. And the little deck chairs alongside, which are blue and like a wonderful teal colour. And green, and to me they just typify the 70s and what you would sort of like lounge on outside. So yeah, that fabric, if I could buy that fabric in like meters, I would do. Thought it was wonderful. Although the women in the episode, Felicity's dress I think deserves a special mention. This really sort of stunning shift dress in browns and peaches and creams, and I think that when Barbara turns up and she's just dressed in like a little brown t-shirt and corduroys, and it's supposed to sort of like show the difference between the Ledbetters and the life that the Goods are now leading. But she looks dead sweet. She looks so cute in her little corduroys.
I thought she looked lovely.
With her hair. She's obviously made an effort because her hair was all sort of like smooth and turned under. But yeah, if I was going to choose an outfit to wear, that would be the outfit that I would want to wear. The little brown cords and the t-shirt.
I thought you meant Felicity's for a moment.
No. The brownness of Barbara's outfit is definitely sort of my kind of style. Margo, however, goes all out is in this peach. Oh, it's a peach low cut number. She's very busty in it, with what looks like a Charles II wig, with her curly hair. So it's a very odd sort of combination of things together. Not something that I would go for. I'd be definitely wearing the Barbara outfit. However, in an earlier scene, Margot is wearing an absolutely stunning green, white and navy maxi dress that looks amazing. It's like a geometric print, and that got me very excited because I thought, wow, I'd wear that now. I would love to wear that now. So yeah, there was lots of things on the women, especially in this episode. Although again, another special mention to Jerry's shirt.
Yep.
At the dinner party, which is stunning, and I can imagine that being something that you'd find in maybe Ted Baker now. It's like greens and browns and oranges. He's got a bit of a cravat underneath it, I think.
Well, both him and Sir both wear cravats, don't they?
There's a lot of cravatage going on at that dinner party. But the shirt, Jerry's shirt, yeah, stunning.
Sir's got a kerchief as well, hasn't he, poking out of his...
He has got a kerchief, yep. And it's that, like, the cream chinos and navy jacket ensemble that men with money wear.
Yeah.
Is that a bit judgy?
No, but it probably was accurate of the time.
Yeah. It just looks mismatched, like you've got dressed in the dark. I think it's quite an odd combo.
But earlier in the episode, you got Jerry rocks up in his Burberry kecks. You know, when he's on the patio, you know, drinking himself into a gin coma. He comes home with... I like the idea that Jerry, when he's away from Margo, is totally different. I just like the idea that he's got this second life where he's not an upper class guy. He's just come from Stamford Bridge, where he's been giving it... beating up, you know, I'm gonna fucking open you up, you c***. But and then he comes home and he puts on the whole Jerry hat.
Slacks.
Yeah, well, maybe he's a bit too well dressed for Stamford Bridge, but yeah, he does look. It's weird how fashions change because he was very much a man about town, but you know, later on that becomes that Burberry pattern. Comes very much a football hooligan thing, doesn't it? And the dress code of chavs, basically. Yeah. So who we got? Who was your sort of most valuable player in this one?
Can I have a combo?
Of course you can. We can make our own rules.
It's the Tom and Barbara combo for being prepared to stick up for what they believe in and not being sort of like steamrolled by the dinner party guests.
I would entirely agree with that conclusion. Jerry, I think, has got the best of intentions, and he's not quite as judgmental. Well, I suppose he is a little, but he's not as judgmental, certainly, as Margo or Andrew. But Tom and Barbara really stick up for themselves, and I'm inclined, if I've got to give it to one, believe it or not, to give it to Tom again, because he doesn't shoot the chicken.
No, he doesn't.
You know?
He doesn't go through with it, yeah. I think, yeah.
I'm beginning to change my entire worldview of, well, not my worldview, but my Tom view.
Your Tom view. I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But I think, yeah, he's, yay Tom at the moment. Yeah, definitely.
Good on you, Tom, you noise-making bastard.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
So next week, what's do you know what next week's episode is?
I do. Next week, the episode is The Weaker Sex, with a question mark on the end, which sees Tom bartering, trying to reinvent the Scarecrow, and Barbara heading next door to the Ledbetters for some respite.
Sounds like it could be a little bit of its time.
I think so, yes. I tend to agree.
But we'll find out.
I think that is there a rag and bone man involved, I think, in the next episode. So
is it that one where they get the furnace? Yeah.
I think so, yeah. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, he'll be a bit cottony, won't he? And no mistake.
So join us next week for episode 3 of the first season of The Good Life, and it's The Weaker Sex.
And in the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us or look us up on social media, we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram at SADDO Podcast. We've got a Facebook page you can find by searching SADDO Podcast. And we've got a website even, saddo.club, where you can get more information about us. We're going to be doing some blog posts on there eventually, I think, aren't we? Probably. You could do some fashion ones and I'll just do whatever I do. And you can also listen to all the episodes on there. And, give some feedback, either via social or you can send us an email at saddopodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, because it really helps us be found by other people who have a penchant for 1970s comedy and sustainability. Very niche market. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Thanks.